The Morrison government faces an uphill battle to win re-election, with new analysis showing the coalition lost more than 2 million votes at state and federal elections since 2013. According to analysis by the Weekend Australian, the coalition has had swings against it at 16 of the last 17 state and federal elections. For more on this, I'm joined from Sydney by Spectator Australia contributor and author of Make the Liberal Party Great Again, John Ruddick. John, these are some pretty Good evening, John. These are some pretty disturbing numbers if you're a Liberal. What's going wrong?
Well, look, I mean, remember, when Julia Gillard was the Prime Minister, there was a strong anti-Labor mood in this country. And in 2013, which is the benchmark for this poll, we had coalition state governments in New South Wales and Queensland in particular with monster majorities. We even had a Victorian Premier in your state at that time, Rita. So about 16.5 million Australians voted in the last federal election. So losing 2 million votes is a lot of votes. But Rita, I'm about 90% sure that Scott Morrison will win the next election. And I'll just spell out what my thinking is there. Since World War II, there have been 28 federal elections in this country. On 21 occasions, the incumbent has been returned. So it's quite unusual for an opposition leader to actually win. Now, on those few occasions when it has happened, when you're about a year away from the election, the polling, the two-party preferred, is absolutely shocking for the government that's on its way to a lot. So, well, John Howard was behind to Kevin Rudd in 2007 by like 40 to 60. When Tony Abbott was running against Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd, his two-party preferred was often 40-60. The two-party preferred polling...
Well, in 2007, that didn't end up too well for the Liberals. But they ended up losing in a landslide. So isn't that...
When there is going to be a change of government, the polling is terrible. It always narrows before on election day.
Okay.
But we're not seeing that now.
But you can't compare that with now because we've got the COVID impact. We've seen the incumbents get a boost because of COVID, whether we're talking state premiers or we're talking about prime ministers here or in the UK or elsewhere, the government seems to be getting a boost because of the crisis that we're all in. So if you factor that in, perhaps we would be seeing 2007-like figures. But the federal Liberals have lost 500,000 votes since Tony Abbott was dumped as Prime Minister. Looking back now, how do you think that's changed the character of the party and the direction of the party?
Well, look, very tragically, what has happened in the last generation, Rita, is that the people winning Liberal Party pre-selections are people who understand the system better than anybody, and that is typically staffers. Now, look, I haven't done the analysis, but I would say we're talking about at least 50% of the backbench, and more so in the cabinet, have really not had too much experience in the private sector. Now, if you go back to the governments of Menzies or Fraser or even Howard, these people were people who had done something significant in the real world and then later in life sought pre-selection, and they felt like they could contribute to the nation. Now, I am distressed by these people who, look, I'm sure they're all very smart people, okay, but I mean, if your whole career is dependent upon your political future and a tough decision comes along where you've got to say, well, I can either do the right thing for the country or do the right thing for my political future, and if all you've got in life is your political career, then they're going to put their career ahead of the nation, and that is not what we want in people setting the laws for the country.
Well, do you think the Liberals have a crisis in who they are and what they really stand for? Certainly, I think at state level, in WA, in Victoria, you could even argue that may be true. But is that across the country? Are they too much of a broad church that it's not really clear what it is that they champion?
Well, look, I agree entirely. Look, I mean, what's happened is the sad reality is we've got two versions of the Labor Party in this country. We've got the Labor Party and we've got the Liberal Party, which on most big issues is basically almost like the Labor Party. Now, look, whether it's global warming or COVID mania or taxes or this $1 trillion of debt, you know, when John Howard lost office, the federal government had about a $20 billion public debt, which is, you know, in a very wealthy country like Australia, 20 billion is nothing. Now, when Rudd lost in 2013, that was up to about $250 billion. I don't know what Kevin Rudd had to spend it on. And now under this Liberal government, the government that was founded by Robert Menzies for economic sanity and for small government, we've somehow put it up well over $1 trillion. And this is before COVID. Tony Abbott is the only leader this country has had who really tried to get stuck into budget repair. And then what happened? He gets negative press reaction, and then the backbench just ganged up on him. And so this is why it's very, very distressing that we really don't have a conservative option in this country. But Rita, I'm an optimist, and I hope that will turn around soon.
Well, I hope it turns around as well, because I think the people deserve a real choice when we forced them to vote in this country. So if we're going to force them to the polling booth, let's give them a real choice. John Ruddick, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thanks, Rita.